church. We don't want to be coachable to some people.
Oh yeah.
There are people we want to be coachable to. We select our own people.
Oh yeah, we all go to that's my pastor. If he tell me to run around the corner, I know he got a reason to do it. But if you tell me, like, who are you? Like, you did not tell me what to do. How did I know you? You are not the pastor. Like you, you know what I'm saying? So we get, and I want to just add to what you're saying. It's humility, but there's a better word. Not to say that your word is not good, but it's vulnerability. We do not want to be vulnerable in the face of other people because we think that being vulnerable means that we can't preach, or that we don't know how to put the light on, or we don't know how to, or we don't know how. We attach that to that. But you can, if you think about your life, if you think about the trajectory of your life, you think about your past, you have learned the most. I'm just going to say, I know this is true. You have learned the most in the spaces where you were most vulnerable. You have not learned anything if you're like, I don't care, she can't tell me nothing. Tell her to try. I already know what I'm going to say to her when she get here. Like, you are not, you've already got it planned. And one of the things that we talk about a lot, like just in training and development, is active listening. And church folks are the worst with that. And what that is like, instead of me listening to you, Missionary Ramsey, I'm thinking about, okay, I got a point for that. Okay, as soon as she get done, I'm gonna let her know that I'm looking for stuff to be on the defense. It's like me and you are like Johnny Cochran. And right, you gonna say something?
No, I was thinking that there are times when I appear to be uncoachable when there's no agenda. And so, thinking from a coaching perspective, don't just come out and then start talking and expect me to pay attention. I need some type of agenda. What are we going to learn today? We're going to learn to catch the ball. We're going to learn to throw the ball. There's a whole realm of things that you can go. And if you don't have an agenda, I appear to be uncoachable.
Yeah, I think and that's one thing that I identify with that too. Because if I go to a meeting and there's no agenda, I'm like, where's the agenda? Like if the person who's running the meeting is late, it's like, you don't know what you're talking about. You should have been here 40 minutes ago, and you're late. And I think that one thing is that I know this is about Black people a little bit. Like we get in that space where our body language and our demeanor is like, if A is not together, then we're not gonna be able to get to B. I'm trying to think of a cleaner way to say that. But we don't know how to break from that physical, I'm mad because something happened. We're still stuck in it. It's like I'm mad because the person was late who's running the meeting and they didn't have an agenda. And 40 minutes after the person is there, I'm still mad. Right, and then it's lunchtime and everybody is going out to lunch and I'm mad because somebody said something in the meeting, so I'm not going to lunch. And the people who go to lunch are the people who are getting a promotion, and I'm at my desk talking about promotion coming not from the east and they're coming not from the west, and God is going to promote me. Well, you need to learn how to get along with people, right? and we need to learn how to project some level of the Michelle McKnight said you could tear her. It said, "Do not touch." For me, what it has been is learning how to check that when I get in that space, so that what I'm projecting is not that nobody can tell me anything. And some people.
So help me. I said I appear to be uncoachable.
Okay.
Am I uncoachable at that moment?
To
your opinion.
I was going to say to a white woman who wants your job, probably. But yes, because of people, it's like the assumptions that people have about body language are developed from when they are 0 years old. So if crossing my arms means that I don't want to hear what you're saying, and you're doing that at work, or if my wife crosses her arms when she doesn't want to hear what I'm saying, and I'm talking to Sister Culver and she crosses her arms, you don't even gotta know my wife. Y'all never met, but I'm associating that behavior with something that I think is you telling me that you don't want to hear what I'm saying. And so I do think it's important to know the people that you work with, because a lot of the times, and that includes church people as well, because people are easily turned off. They want an excuse not to participate in ministry, right? They want, I seen her in the parking lot and I seen she looked at me funny, and it's like most of the time you're not even there, right? Like you don't even know like what they're talking about. And they usually tell somebody else and you're like, what? I didn't even examine that. But I think as we grow in ministry and we think of ourselves as people responsible for the harvest, we back up from that, right? It's sort of like, this is just, so I hear people and I work with kids who tell me all the time, I want to be a leader, but this is just who I am, right? I can't change this. This is who I am. This is who I grew up to be. And it's like, no, you actually can change that, right? Like you can change the way you act in a meeting. Like you can change the way you show up in certain spaces. You can change the way you answer the phone. You can change how you present yourself when you're in the face of somebody who you know is vulnerable and weak. You can change that, right? Yes.
I think, to what Elder was saying, I think I used to be like that, where I really needed an agenda, and if you didn't come in, I felt like you weren't prepared, you lose my attention. However, I learned that there's so many different leadership styles, and I have learned from people that don't have an agenda. And so you can't close, because I used to be the same way, I'll close your you got issues we need to but what I'm saying is that you'll miss, like Minister Vaughn is saying, you'll miss it, you'll miss your moment, because you're still closed up 20 minutes later. But some of the best speakers that I've had in this last project are people that don't come with an agenda. Our CEO don't come with an agenda. He just come in and talk. You know, and he may be 5 minutes late, he's burning out, putting out fire somewhere else. He come in and, okay, this is, we don't even really know what to mean about it. He's coming in to just tell us, we need blah, 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 blah. But you learn that everybody has a different leadership style. Well, I would come with an agenda with time. Everybody doesn't do that, but it doesn't mean I can't learn from you. So you have to go behind your barriers and learn everybody's not like you, and everybody has different leadership styles, and you'll miss a coachable moment.
Yeah. My, the management team that I'm on, I'm the only agenda person. Everybody else is an agenda person, and they want to just get in the room and feel what to talk about. And I just don't, that doesn't work for me. And the other day I was like talking to my mentor about it. He was the vice president at Sac State, and I was like, this just doesn't work for me. It really like just cramps me up. And he was talking about how the current president of Sac State is very impulsive. Like he don't like the way you look today. Like you might not be working here tomorrow, right? But one thing that he said is that when they realized that he was impulsive, and it could be when they realized he wasn't going to have an agenda or whatever it was, they were like, okay, I need to tap into that. So they said he's visual. So I'm going to have him come to the Cross-Cultural Center and see that we need the walls painted and we need an extra $20,000. If we can show that to him, and sure enough, they showed it to him, he's impulsive, they got $20,000 on his way back to the office, right? Because they had to figure out, okay, how do I capitalize or how do I benefit, and that sounds kind of negative, but how do I capitalize or benefit from what I believe this person's deficit is? And you can, right? But if you decide, okay, he ain't coming with an agenda, I ain't going to the meeting, then you're not going to get what it is that you need. So being coachable is important, and I think we want to labor that. But I have a handout that I want to share with you. So there are some. Just to back. Well, I like to delegate. Yes. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. It's the second page. So there are 7 levels of authority for a good leader, or for a good leadership group or group of leaders to discuss. There is 1 level of authority for a poor leader. A poor leader says, you know what? I'm just going to tell you how it's going to be. I'm going to come to the meeting. I'm going to say, Elder Carter, starting tomorrow, there will be no, starting on Sunday, there will be no Sunday school, and, hope you can handle that. And I'll talk to you later. And then, that's how they know, because they have made a decision, they got a good reason, or whether they got a good reason or a bad reason, or whatever that might be, they have determined that that is it. But there are levels to authority. So the example that I just gave is to tell, and that's just to make the decision as a leader. I'm just going to tell you, this is how it's going to be. I don't care what you think. I don't want your feedback. I'm just telling you, this is what's going to happen. And I just want to note that some people need all of these different leadership styles. So like some people I have a staff person that just tells me all the time, just tell me what to do. I don't want to be innovative, I don't want to make up nothing. I just want you to tell me exactly what to do and how to do it. Some people need that. Then there is sell, to convince people about a decision. So I have already made up my mind, but I want Missionary McKnight to get on board. So I'm going to say, okay, if you do it this way, and what do you think about this? I don't really care what you think, but I'm just telling you, like what do you think about it, right? And then there is consult, to get input from the team before a decision. Now, most people say they like this, right? I want to give input before the decision is made. But then again, there are some people who just want the decision. Just tell me what to do. Or to agree to make a decision together with the team. And then there's advise, to influence the decision made by the team, inquire, to ask for feedback after the decision by the team. And then there's delegate, which is, I'm not going to influence the situation at all. I'm just going to let you figure it out as a group. So the reason why I think, and I printed this out for people, because I try to, I have this in my office, because sometimes like people will present stuff to you and they want you to do one of these things, but they'll say they want you to make a decision, but they really want to give you some feedback about it, but they're trying to see how you feel. Like, how do you feel about, on third Sunday, instead of having, like, what they're really saying is that this is what I've already been talking about it with my crew, and like, this is what we think will work, and if you say, like, no, it's not going to be like that, kick rocks, then they're going to be like, he was so rude and nasty, and he told me that we couldn't do it. And if you say, well, you have a couple extra dollars to make it happen, they might be like, oh, okay, man, yeah, I'll give you $20 if we can change the service, eliminate that part. So I think this is important for us to be thinking about how people want to make decisions and how people want to interact with you when you are positioned with the opportunity to delegate. And delegating is not always the answer to the way to deal with something. So I made that copy for everybody. I want to just briefly talk about Moses. Did anybody read Exodus 18? Not yet. Okay, you have it in the past. So
Sound like one of those things on that delegation you didn't do.
yes, yeah. I thought about. I don't have no agenda. So I was reading when I got the outline. I was reading Exodus 18, and I always sort of like I try to read things, but then I try to read it. So I'll read it in the King James, then I read it in NASB, then I read it in the Message, and then I go back and I'll go, eat McDonald's and read it again, and so I was reading it and I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna talk about this all weekend, and they're gonna just dive into it. But I just wanted to read just one verse because I know it's gonna be talked about exhaustively over the weekend. But one of the things, so Jethro, Jethro is Moses' father, and at Jethro's house is Moses' wife and children, and they decide to essentially make a visit to see Moses. So they go to see Moses. The first day is like family reunion. They're kicking it. They go, Moses takes Jethro in the tent, and they start talking about what happened in Egypt, and this is like verse 1 through 13. So they start talking about what happened in Egypt and how the Lord brought them out. Jethro is excited, and he says, well, let's burn an offering, let's celebrate this, let's thank the Lord for what the Lord has done. They have a good old day, probably have something to eat, and then the next day comes, right? And so, after, how it is, like your family's still over for the first night, it's like all the family, right? Welcome, let me just cater to your every need. But the second day, you kind of need to go back to some of the regular things that it is that you do. So Moses goes back to doing what he normally does. He judges the people. So he sits down and, they come to him one by one. He hears out the issues. He figures that he uses ritual and culture to make decisions. And Jethro is watching his son-in-law do this. Now, Jethro has this invested interest in Moses because Moses is the father of his grandchildren. Moses is the husband of his daughter. And so, of course, he wants to see Moses live for a long time. So he says, Moses, what you are doing is not sustainable. You cannot sit here all day judging people or judging in the way that they do in the Bible. You have to figure out a way to get other folks to help you. And the one thing that, the point that I pulled out of that, because I know the pastor's going to hit on it tonight, but the point that really stuck out to me is that Moses was able to, and I thought about, was it Mary? The two Marys, and one Mary was in the kitchen, and one Mary was at the feet of Jesus, and Martha, and Martha was mad at Mary because she wasn't paying attention, and she's like, you know, Jesus is here, you know, you need to get with the program, right? And is that how it goes? Some of y'all looking at me like, read your Bible. So what occurred to me is that, and maybe it was because Moses was dedicated, maybe it was because he was faithful, maybe it was because he was committed to what he was doing, but he was willing to leave his family, people who were visiting, people who he hadn't seen apparently in a while, to go and do his job. Right? And a lot of times we put what we believe, oh, I gotta go down to the church, or oh, I gotta do this for the Lord. And it's like sometimes you need to just step back, right, and figure out what are my priorities? Like what is it that I am supposed to do? And sometimes running to the church every time is not it. Right? We need to step back and say, what are my priorities? I was gonna show this video, but I didn't have it set up. And one of my favorite writers, Covey, he talks about, he gives this example of a vase. He has a vase out on the table, and he pours sand in it, and he pours pebbles in it, and then he puts some big rocks on the top of it. And he asks the people who he's teaching, he says, you know, the big rocks are your priorities. They're the things that are important to you, the things that you value. It's your family, it's your ministry, the things that are of utmost importance to you. And then those small pebbles are, you know, things that you could do, but you don't have to do. You know, the things that you think are important, but, you know, you could probably live without them. And the sand are just the trivial things that we do in our life. And what he said is that a lot of times we fill our bucket with sand, right? And then some of the trivial stuff, the pebbles. And then when it's time to think about those high priority items, we don't have room for it, right? And so it's difficult for you to think about delegating or thinking about delegating from a clear perspective when you, bless you, Pastor. Anyway, it's difficult for you to think about delegating when you, in the proper sense, when you're just doing it to get something off your plate, or when it is not the top priority, or you're so, and we talk a little bit about this, and I can identify with this. Sometimes I'm not delegating because I have trust issues. I have not identified somebody that I can trust, and what it is I wait to the last minute to ask for help, right? And so I say to myself, oh wait, can't nobody do this like me. And what I'm saying is, can't nobody do this at the last minute like me, right? like if I had to choose whether to trust myself to do it at the last minute or whether to trust somebody else to do it at the last minute, I'm going with myself, right? Because then I don't and the excuses that we make is, well, I don't have time to train them. Right? Well, I don't have time to do it. It's all of these different things that we say are the excuses that we make for why we don't delegate. I don't have time to train. I don't trust anybody else. And the reality is that if we can just sit down and think about what it is that we need people to do to help us, and this is what Jethro is saying to Moses, you got to sit down, and it wasn't that Jethro was asking Moses to do less work, right? It wasn't that Jethro was asking Moses to be less passionate, less committed. He wasn't telling him to do that. He's just like, hey, look out there and see some dudes or some people or some systems that can help you do what you do better, right? And for everybody, no matter what level you are at, no matter who you are, there comes a time when you know enough to empower somebody else to do something. Right? And you hear people, and I kind of struggle with this as just a young leader and a young manager. I hear people saying all the time, well, you're only a good manager if if somebody else can do your job at the end of the rope. And like, well, it's like, I also don't want to get a bad performance evaluation tomorrow. So I'm not giving all my, my stuff to somebody else because I don't trust them. So what Jethro is telling Moses is that you have to be intentional, right? You cannot wait till the last minute to delegate. You cannot overload yourself with responsibilities at the last minute for whatever reason that it might be, whether it's lack of resources or lack of trust or control issues or being a perfectionist. If you are a perfectionist, and this is something that I have learned because somebody said it to me one time, I'm a perfectionist, it has to be perfect. Well, then, if you're a perfectionist, then you're the best teacher, right? You are the person that ought to be able to show everybody how to do it right. Don't you want to learn from somebody who does it perfectly? Right? So why is it that it's the perfectionists that never seem to have the time or the resources or the ability to teach other people? Right? And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are scared. Like, we have a fear of underperforming. And, I told my manager just yesterday, I was just like, I really want to do well, but I don't have time to fail. So, I need you to tell me that if I have Susie, do this element of my job and she failed, that you're not gonna go crazy on me, right? Because I need to know that you're gonna support me in delegating and training. And the reality is that people have to make mistakes, right? They have to make mistakes, or that's how we became perfectionists, because we did it wrong one time, and then we're like, okay, the next time, I'm gonna fix this, I'm gonna change this, I'm gonna do this a little bit different. Elder Smith.
As you were talking about the trust issue, how you feel that you can do it at the last minute. My problem with trust is I like it done before time. So especially at workout, I'll say, okay, I need you. They say, okay, Charles, you're in charge of this. Okay, all right, I'm good. All right, y'all do this. But then if I see it coming close to the last few weeks or so, and it's not being all right, you know what, I'll take care of it. Because it's not getting done like I think it should be done. Maybe they're going to do it in the last week, but I'm like, I don't want to be at the last week and then we have to call 20 people to come help. Just as an example, we do inspections annually. And they ask for it in the middle of the year. I did mine in January. So now everybody is pushing against the belt to get theirs done. I'm like, I got to send my paperwork in. I'm already done, been done. But when I look out and see somebody else do it, that's when my trust comes in. Like, you do this every year. You ought to know it should. But like I said, that's where my problem with trust comes in. But then I do find out that there are some people who will do it right, but they'll wait till the last minute.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that is important, because I know, when I have an assistant and I love her, she is so amazing, but she's a little slow, and she needs me to be I almost want to turn my head because it helps. Right? I love her. She says, she quotes scriptures and stuff. She'll come and encourage people with scripture, and we are thick as thieves, right? But, I'll be kind of tense because I'm I know I told her to do this yesterday. Right? And I know she's going to do it by the deadline, but I'm thinking, put me out of my misery. Just tell me that you can't do it so that I can, do it in 2 minutes, because I'm ready, right? I can execute this very quickly, and then we don't have to be mad at each other. Well, maybe, because I'm going to remember next time. And so I think that, and this is, I'm almost out of time. So if everybody have this sheet, it's the second sheet. So I wanted to do just a little scenario, but I think that I just want to end with these couple of things. I think we need to think about what are some things that I'm avoiding because there's some things that we easily delegate. For me, it's anything with an Excel sheet. I just don't want to, I think it's awesome. When people do Excel stuff for me, I'm so happy. I'm buying Starbucks cards, and I'm just happy, right? But what I realized is that I've been like that my whole career. And I'm getting ready to get some new people that might not know how to do it, and they're not going to be comfortable with Google Docs. So I got to figure out, how to train them. What if 3 years ago, right, I would have been I would have listened to my manager and said, okay, I will take that Excel class. So I was just too arrogant. I was thinking, well, everybody in there is an administrative assistant, and I'm a manager, so I can't go in there with them. I'm just, that's just my mind. And now I don't know how to do it, so I can't train other people. right? It's not my gift. I'm never going to be an Excel teacher. Like, I'm never going to be an Excel expert, but I'm going to have people that I have expectations for that I'm going to want to delegate to, and I need to know that they're doing it in the way that it needs to be done. So it's important for me to think about what are the things that I'm avoiding, whether it's, you know, what I want to learn in ministry, what I want to learn at work. What are the things that I'm avoiding that I need to face, that I need to ask God, God help me to get over my fear of doing that so that I can grow in that area, so that at the very least, after I have done it one time, even if I fail, I can tell somebody else, you can try it. It's not that hard, like it's not that bad, just try it. So what are those things, and being prayerful about it. And then what are the things that I'm holding on to, whether that is I'm afraid to be vulnerable, I'm afraid to tell my colleague that, you know, like I am, you know, one of the things for me is like, I'm a big black guy, right? And so I don't want to scare people. And so I'm always like, oh, I don't want to scare her, but I want to be firm with her, but I don't want to scare her, right? You know, like, what are the things that I'm holding on to? I just need to go take a class or ask somebody big and black, like, well, how do you do it, right? Like, right? Are you good at it? Like, how do you do it? Instead of always saying, well, you know, the reason why I didn't approach her is because, you know, I didn't want her to, like, you know, I didn't, you know, I need to just release it, right? So what are the things that I'm holding on to? 3, the people that I want to invest time in. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to be growing spiritually, growing professionally, and not investing time in other people. And what I realized is that if I start investing little by little, and sometimes we get caught in this, I went to this training and they were saying that like, oh, you know, we're living in a new day, and that's where mentors find you. You don't find the mentor. Well, I don't know if that is the truth within this spiritual realm, because there's some people that we see and we know right away that the Lord might tell us, hey, go tell that person something. Or you might notice something that you were experiencing in your life when you were young, and they're going through it, and you might say something to them to encourage them. So I think it's important for us to not be waiting until somebody asks us to be their coach or their mentor, or somebody asks us, right? We always need to be asked. Find that person. Ask God to lead you. Wake up in the morning and say, Lord, lead me to somebody that needs my help. But most importantly, we have to learn how to see the potential in other people, not just ourselves. We can't be so caught in leading the song that we don't see that somebody else wants to lead and learn, right? We can't be so caught in teaching that we don't see that there's somebody else that wants to lead and learn. And the reality is that if you get a newcomer to come teach this class, it's going to be rough for the first 16 times, right? Right? You know, but every time that they do it and you're there with them to encourage them and to strengthen them, they're going to gain more confidence and they're going to be more willing to do it. They're going to feel more comfortable. I always tell Missionary Anderson, because the first time that I ever like really spoke at Progressive was at some conference that she was having for the Rainbow Committee. And it encouraged me, right? I started doing it. I was like, okay, this feels good. PowerPoint, right? And it really encouraged me, right? It made me feel like, okay, I can actually talk in front of people. And I do it at work, but it just was something different about doing it here. But if she would have never invested that in me or thought that I was capable of doing it, I would have ended up with a whole lot of people that just need that chance from you. Whether it's just talking to you for 5 minutes or talking to you for 3 minutes or learning how you do something or explaining something. And then, what skill set do I want to develop? So yes, we want to pray and ask God to help us and to strengthen us in ministry, but there are skill sets that you learn by taking classes, by reading books, by going to workshops, by availing yourselves to opportunities to be taught. And so we need to be thinking about that. And then, who are the people that I want to learn from? Maybe they're not my mentor, maybe I don't know them necessarily. I like T.D. Jakes. I like to watch what he does. I go to his church every Monday morning. My office, I close the door and go to T.D. church. But I'm fascinated by like how he plans conferences. I'm fascinated by even like down to how he has a card with all of his announcements. Like that just fascinates me. He's a person that I would want to learn from. I've got to know him to learn from him. I'm just watching him. I'm observing him. And then finally, just take some time to reflect about those 3 areas that'll be first steps for you if there are any areas that you're, so if it's, how do I deal with the fact that I don't trust the people, or that the people around me are not good, or that I'm a perfectionist, or that I have control issues, or that I don't trust people, or that I have a lack of resources, and what do I do first in order to become somebody comfortable with delegating or not delegating because there's an area where God wants me to grow. Thank you.